The dark ships moved through space like hunting wolves. Commander Zixathera stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched the small blue planet grow larger on the viewing screen. Earth looked peaceful and quiet. The report said it would be an easy target. Humans were weak and primitive. The elves who lived in the forests were even weaker. This would be another simple conquest for the Draconian Empire. Zixathera had conquered 12 worlds before this one. Each time was the same. Her ships would arrive. The planet would try to fight. Within days, the fighting would end, and the Draconians would claim another world. The creatures living there would become slaves or food. Their resources would feed the growing empire. Earth would be no different. The fleet contained 300 warships. Each ship carried thousands of Draconian warriors. Their scales were dark green, and their eyes glowed red in the darkness of space. Sharp teeth filled their mouths and long claws grew from their fingers. They were born to fight and kill. No enemy had ever defeated them in battle. Down on Earth, Lisa Morgan sat in a meeting room deep underground. She had been a Marine captain before becoming a liaison officer. Now she worked to keep peace between the human military and the elven communities. The job was not easy. Humans and elves had different ways of thinking about war and peace, but lately they had been working together more and more. General Kate Sullivan entered the room carrying a thick folder of papers. Her face looked serious and worried. Behind her came Dr. Megan Foster, who studied alien life forms. Megan had been watching the sky for weeks now. The radio signals from space told a story that no one wanted to hear. "They are coming," Megan said, as she sat down. "The Draconian fleet will reach Earth in less than 6 hours. Our satellites picked up their ships 3 days ago. We have been translating their messages ever since." Kate opened the folder and spread out photos of the alien ships. The pictures showed massive dark vessels bristling with weapons. "How many ships?" Lisa asked. 300 confirmed, maybe more behind them. This is a full invasion force." Kate pointed to the largest ship in the photos. "That one is 5 miles long. Our intelligence says it can destroy entire cities with one shot." Lisa studied the photos. She had seen war before, but nothing like this. "What do the elves say about this?" "We sent a message to Keeper Alara Moonwhisper 2 hours ago. She is gathering the Council of Leaves right now. They want to meet with us before the aliens arrive." The 3 women left the underground bunker and drove through the forest to the elven settlement. Ancient trees towered above them, reaching toward the sky. The road was made of smooth stones that seemed to glow with their own light. Lisa had visited this place many times, but it still amazed her. The elves lived in harmony with nature in ways that humans had forgotten long ago. Alara Moonwhisper waited for them in a clearing surrounded by the largest trees. She was tall and graceful, with silver hair that moved like water in the wind. Her green eyes held wisdom that came from centuries of life. Around her stood 12 other elves who made up the Council of Leaves. Each one wore robes of different colors that matched the seasons. "We have felt the darkness approaching for many days," Alara said as the humans approached. "Our seers have seen visions of sky lizards who breathe fire and eat worlds. The ancient prophecies spoke of this time. The children of scales would come seeking to devour all life." Dr. Rachel Kim stepped forward from the group of elves. She was a human scientist who had been studying elven magic for the past 5 years. "The prophecies also speak of an alliance," she said. "Humans and elves fighting together against the darkness. We have been preparing for this moment." Kate looked surprised. "Preparing? How long have you known about this threat?" Alara smiled, but her eyes remained serious. "Our people have watched the stars for 3,000 years. We knew the Draconians would come eventually. Your radio telescopes only confirmed what our star readers already knew." Amy Chen emerged from behind one of the large trees. She was a human engineer who had been working with elven craftsmen to create new kinds of weapons. In her hands, she carried something that looked like a rifle, but glowed with blue light. "We have been combining human technology with elven magic," she said. "The results are better than we hoped." Lisa took the weapon and examined it. The metal felt warm to the touch, and she could sense energy flowing through it like a river. "How many of these do we have?" "Enough," said Lirelei Starweaver, an elven mage whose specialty was shaping metal and stone. "We have been working day and night for months. Every human soldier and every elven warrior will have weapons like this." Suddenly, the sky above them began to darken. Not from clouds, but from the shadows of massive ships. The Draconian fleet had arrived ahead of schedule. Hundreds of dark shapes blocked out the sun as they moved into position above the major cities of Earth. "It begins," Alara said quietly. She raised her staff and spoke words in the ancient elven language. The forest around them seemed to come, alive as trees swayed without wind and flowers opened even though it was not their season. General Sullivan spoke into her radio. "All units, this is command. The aliens are here. Begin defensive positions. Repeat, begin defensive positions." She looked at the mixed group of humans and elves around her. "Are we really ready for this?" Beth Adams jogged into the clearing wearing full combat gear. She was a lieutenant colonel in charge of special operations. "Ma'am, we have reports coming in from all over the planet. The alien ships are landing troops in major cities, New York, London, Tokyo, and a dozen other places." The first explosions could be heard in the distance as energy weapons fired from the alien ships. But instead of screams of panic, there came sounds of return fire. Human weapons mixed with elven magic created new kinds of explosions that lit up the sky with colors that had no names. "The Draconians expect us to run and hide," Lisa said as she checked her new weapon. "They think we are weak and afraid. They do not know that humans and elves have been waiting for them." Sylvana Nightbreeze appeared from the shadows between the trees. She was an elven scout who could move without making any sound. "I have seen their landing craft. Big and slow and full of warriors who think they have already won. They do not expect resistance." Kate smiled for the first time that day. "Then let us show them how wrong they are. Signal all units. Operation Stormfront is now active. Time to teach these lizards that Earth is not an easy meal." The mixed force of humans and elves moved out through the forest toward the sounds of battle. Above them, the alien ships continued to land troops, but something was different. The Draconians had expected to face a planet full of scared primitives. Instead, they found an enemy that had been waiting and preparing. The real fight was about to begin. The first Draconian dropships landed in the center of New York City like giant metal beetles. Commander Zixathara watched from her flagship as her warriors poured out of the landing craft. She expected to see humans running in terror through the streets. Instead, she saw organized resistance that made no sense. Human soldiers took positions behind barriers that had not been there moments before. The barriers were made of living wood that grew from the concrete streets. Vines thick as tree trunks wrapped around alien landing craft and crushed them like tin cans. Energy weapons fired from the Draconian ships, but the beams struck magical shields that flickered with green light. "What is happening down there?" Zixthera demanded from her second-in-command. "Why are our weapons not working?" "Unknown." "Commander, the energy readings make no sense. It appears the humans have some kind of defensive technology we have never encountered before." On the ground, Dr. Rachel Kim coordinated the defense from a mobile command unit that looked like a normal truck. Inside the vehicle screen showed the battle from dozens of different angles. She spoke into her headset to units spread across the city. "Team 7, this is command. Move your position 50 meters east. The elves are about to do something big in your area." Through the largest screen, she watched as Lirelei Starweaver raised her hands toward a group of office buildings. The buildings began to change shape, as if they were made of clay instead of steel and glass. Windows became arrow slits. Walls grew thicker and stronger. Rooftops sprouted defensive towers that had not been there before. "How is she doing that?" asked one of the human soldiers watching the transformation. "Elven earth magic," Rachel explained. "She can reshape any natural material. Since concrete is made from stone and steel comes from iron ore, she can change them like a sculptor changes clay." Amy Chen worked frantically at a computer terminal, while elven artificers chanted in their ancient language around glowing crystals. On the screen in front of her, energy readings climbed higher and higher. "The weapon systems are charging perfectly," she announced. "Human technology channeling elven magical energy. This should not work, but it does." Outside the command vehicle, the battle raged through the streets. Draconian warriors were 8 feet tall with thick scales that could stop most bullets. Their claws could tear through steel and their energy weapons could melt concrete. But they had never fought an enemy like this before. Captain Nina Ross led a squad of human marines equipped with the new hybrid weapons. The rifles looked normal except for the blue crystals mounted near the barrel. When she pulled the trigger, the weapon fired bullets that sparkled with magical energy. The enhanced ammunition punched through Draconian armor like it was paper. Target. Down, she reported as a massive alien warrior fell to the street. These new rounds are incredible. The lizards do not know what hit them. Behind her, Sylvana Nightbreeze moved through the battle like a dancing shadow. The elven scout carried twin blades that hummed with power. When she struck a Draconian warrior, lightning flowed from the weapons into the alien body. The creatures that had conquered dozens of worlds fell before her like wheat before a scythe. Commander Zixthara received reports from battle zones around the planet, and each one told the same impossible story. In London, her forces were trapped in a maze of thorns that grew from the Thames River. In Tokyo, massive trees erupted from the subway tunnels and wrapped their roots around alien aircraft. In Sydney, the harbor itself rose up in the form of water, elementals that dragged Draconian ships beneath the waves. "This is not possible," she snarled as another report arrived. "How can a primitive planet have such defenses?" Her intelligence officer approached with a tablet full of intercepted communications. "Commander, we have been monitoring human radio signals. It appears they have been working with the native elven population for some time. They call it an alliance." Elves? The forest dwellers were supposed to be even weaker than the humans. "Our information appears to have been incorrect. Commander, these elves wield significant magical power and the humans have found ways to enhance it with their technology." Back on Earth, Lieutenant Colonel Beth Adams rappelled from a helicopter onto the roof of a Draconian command ship that had landed in Central Park. Her team included both human special forces and elven rangers. The elves moved without sound while the humans provided heavy firepower. "Charges set," reported Sergeant Jamie Lee as she attached explosives to the ship's communication array. The bombs were not normal explosives, but a hybrid of human engineering and elven alchemy. When they detonated, they would release energy that disrupted both technology and magic. Tharia Earthsong knelt on the roof and placed her hands against the alien metal. She was an elven druid who could speak to plants and stones. Through her touch, she could feel the ship's structure and find its weak points. "The ship's hull is strongest here and here," she said, pointing to specific spots. "But if you place the charges there and there, the whole vessel will collapse." The hybrid weapons worked better than anyone had expected. Draconian energy shields were designed to stop physical projectiles or energy beams. They could not handle ammunition that was both physical and magical at the same time. The enhanced bullets passed through the shields like they were not there. Dr. Elena Price worked in an underground laboratory with Muriel Dawnlight, an elven healer who understood how bodies worked better than any human doctor. Together, they studied captured Draconian blood samples and tissue. "Their physiology is fascinating," Elena said as she looked through a microscope, "but also very specialized. They need specific atmospheric conditions to function properly." Muriel nodded as she examined the same samples with her magical senses. "Their blood carries toxins that would kill most other species, but those same toxins make them vulnerable to certain plant compounds. I know of several herbs that would be deadly to them, but harmless to humans and elves." Above ground, the battle continued to turn against the Draconians. Their warriors were brave and strong, but they had never faced an enemy that combined technology with magic. Human satellites guided by elven star readers tracked every alien movement. Radio communications enhanced by elven telepathy could not be intercepted or jammed. Celestine Starfall stood on a hilltop overlooking the city and raised her hands toward the night sky. She was an astromancer who could read the paths of stars and bend space itself. Around her, other elven mages joined their power to hers. Together, they wove invisible barriers around the planet that would prevent any signals from reaching space. "The Draconians cannot call for help," she announced to the human commanders watching through binoculars. "Their messages will not leave this solar system. As far as their empire knows, this fleet has simply vanished. Major Chloe Parker led an assault team toward a grounded Draconian capital ship near the harbor. The ship was massive and heavily defended, but it contained the alien field commander and important intelligence. Elementalists are in position, she reported as elven mages took their places around the landing zone. The attack began with an earthquake that made the alien ship rock like a boat in a storm. Lightning struck from a clear sky and set the ship's weapons on fire. Then the assault team moved in while the Draconians were still trying to figure out what had happened. Commander Zixathara watched the battle reports with growing disbelief. This was supposed to be a simple conquest. Her forces should have overwhelmed the planet in hours. Instead, they were being pushed back on every front by an enemy that seemed to know their every move. "Order all ships to begin orbital bombardment," she commanded. "If we cannot take the planet intact, then we will destroy it and take what remains." But when her ships tried to fire their main weapons, nothing happened. The targeting systems showed empty space where the planet should be. Somehow, the magical barriers around Earth were making it invisible to their sensors. The Draconians had come to conquer a world, but found themselves fighting shadows and illusions that struck back with deadly force. The morning sun rose over a battlefield that looked nothing like what the Draconians had expected. Their landing zones had become death traps. Thick vines grew through their equipment and crushed their vehicles. Trees moved like living creatures and attacked anything with scales. The very ground beneath their feet had turned against them. Captain Nina Ross crouched behind a barrier of living wood and studied the alien positions through her binoculars. Next to her, Sylvana Nightbreeze pointed toward a group of Draconian supply vehicles. "They bring ammunition and food every 2 hours," the elven scout whispered. "Always the same route through the park. Then we hit them next time they come through," Nina decided. She spoke into her radio. "Command, this is Strike Team Alpha. We have eyes on enemy supply convoy, requesting permission to intercept." Dr. Rachel Kim's voice crackled through the radio from the mobile command center. "Permission granted, Alpha. Remember, these lizards heal fast, so make sure they stay down." The supply convoy consisted of 6 large vehicles protected by 20 Draconian warriors. The aliens moved carefully through the park, watching for human ambushes. They did not notice the trees above them swaying without any wind. They did not see the flowers that turned to track their movement like tiny eyes. When the trap was sprung, it happened faster than thought. Roots erupted from the ground and wrapped around alien legs. Branches reached down from above and lifted warriors into the air. The hybrid weapons fired from hidden positions and filled the air with sparkling death. In less than 3 minutes, the entire convoy was destroyed. The surviving Draconians found themselves surrounded by humans and elves who seemed to appear from nowhere. "Surrender, and you will be treated according to the rules of war," Nina called out in the Draconian language that she had learned from captured prisoners. Most of the aliens threw down their weapons. They had never faced an enemy that offered mercy before. The Draconian way was to fight until death. But these humans and elves were different. They fought with terrible skill, but they also showed kindness to those who yielded. Dr. Elena Price worked in her underground laboratory with samples of air from the surface. Muriel Dawnlight had created a compound from forest herbs that would make Earth's atmosphere toxic to Draconians. The mixture was subtle and would not harm humans or elves, but for the aliens it would be like trying to breathe poison. "The compound binds to their respiratory systems," Elena explained to General Kate Sullivan over a video link. "After breathing it for a few hours, they become weak and confused. After a full day, they cannot fight at all." Kate nodded as she studied the test. "Results. How do we deliver it? We cannot poison the whole planet." "We do not need to," Muriel said as she joined the conversation. "Elven wind singers can carry the compound on air currents. We can target specific areas where the Draconians have landed while leaving the rest of the atmosphere clean." High above the planet, Commander Zixathara paced the bridge of her flagship like a caged animal. More than half of her ground forces were dead or captured. The humans and elves fought with a coordination that seemed impossible. Every time her warriors tried to attack, they found their enemies waiting in prepared positions. "Commander, we are receiving reports that our troops are becoming ill," her medical officer announced. "Respiratory problems and neurological symptoms. It appears to be some kind of airborne toxin. Can you treat it?" "Unknown, Commander. We have never encountered anything like this before. It may be a biological weapon designed specifically to target our species. The truth was even worse than the Draconians realized. The humans and elves had been studying them for years through intercepted communications and captured technology. Every weakness had been cataloged, every strength had been countered. Earth had prepared for this invasion like a spider preparing its web. Technical Sergeant Jamie Lee worked alongside elven tech mages in a captured Draconian bunker. The aliens had built their equipment to be indestructible, but they had not counted on enemies who could reshape matter itself. Elven magic flowed through the alien circuits and changed them at the molecular level. Their weapons are now ours, announced Navis Moonblossom as she finished her enchantment. The elven artificer had turned the bunker's defensive systems against any Draconian who tried to approach. The building will recognize human and elven life signs, but anything else will be destroyed. The war was becoming a rout. Draconian forces, that had expected to face primitive warriors, instead found themselves outmatched at every level. Human tactics combined with elven magic created strategies that no military academy in the galaxy had ever imagined. Dr. Olivia Grant made her breakthrough while examining captured Draconian armor. The scales that protected the aliens from most weapons had a specific crystalline structure. When exposed to certain frequencies of sound, they became brittle as glass. "We can shatter their armor with sonic weapons," she explained to Amy Chen. Over their work table, Amy looked at the frequency charts and smiled. "Elven singers can produce these exact tones. We do not need to build new weapons. We just need a really good choir." Within hours, every battlefield on Earth echoed with elven voices raised in songs that had not been heard for 1,000 years. The ancient war chants carried on the wind and struck Draconian armor like invisible hammers. Warriors who had seemed invincible suddenly found themselves vulnerable to weapons that should not have been able to hurt them. Captain Laura Stone worked with Serafina Thoughtweaver in the Intelligence Center deep beneath the Pentagon. Laura was a signals expert who could break any code. Serafina was an elven mind mage who could read thoughts from great distances. Together they intercepted every Draconian communication and turned the alien coordination against them. "They are planning to regroup at coordinates 47 Alpha, Laura announced as she decoded another message. 3 companies converging from different directions. Serafina closed her eyes and let her consciousness drift across the battlefield. Through her magical senses, she could feel the alien minds moving toward their meeting point. "They will arrive at sunset, but they do not know we are listening." The trap was set with mathematical precision. When the Draconian companies reached their rally point, they found the area surrounded by human artillery and elven battle mages. The aliens had walked into a killing ground prepared specifically for them. Commander Zix Thara received the reports of the massacre with growing desperation. This was not how wars were supposed to go. Her forces had superior technology and overwhelming numbers, but somehow the primitives of Earth were winning through a combination of planning and powers that defied explanation. "Order all remaining. Ground forces to withdraw to the landing zones," she commanded. "We will evacuate what we can and glass the planet from orbit." But even this retreat was anticipated. Human and elven forces had positioned themselves between the alien troops and their extraction points. The Draconians found themselves trapped on a world that had become their graveyard. Archmage Valdris Starseeker stood on the highest tower of the elven capital and reached out with senses that could touch the edge of space itself. He was the oldest and most powerful of the elven leaders. His magic had grown strong over centuries of studying the deep mysteries of existence. "The alien fleet prepares to bombard our world," he announced to the Council of Leaves. "They believe that destroying the surface will end their problems. They do not understand what they face." Around him, 11 other archmages joined their power to his. Together they began to weave the greatest enchantment in elven history. A shield that would protect not just a city or a forest, but an entire planet. Dr. Helen Brooks worked frantically in her laboratory as the magical energies began to build around the world. She was Earth's leading expert on quantum physics, and she had been trying to understand how elven magic actually worked. Now, she thought she had found the answer. "Magic manipulates probability at the quantum level," she explained to anyone who would listen. If we can synchronize our defensive systems with the elven spellwork, we can create a barrier that exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The combination of human science and elven magic was about to face its greatest test. Above them, the Draconian fleet prepared to unleash enough firepower to sterilize a continent. Below them, the defenders of Earth prepared to show the galaxy that some worlds were too dangerous to conquer. The bombardment from space began at dawn. Massive energy beams struck down from the Draconian fleet like the wrath of angry gods. The weapons could melt mountains and turn cities to glass. But when the beams hit Earth's atmosphere, they struck, something that should not have been possible. A shimmering barrier of light surrounded the entire planet. The barrier was made from both human technology and elven magic woven together into something greater than either could achieve alone. The energy beams struck the shield and simply vanished, as if they had never existed. Commander Zix Thara watched from her flagship as her most powerful weapons failed to even scratch the planet's surface. "This is impossible," she snarled at her weapons officer. "Nothing can withstand that much firepower." "Commander, the energy readings make no sense," the officer replied, while checking his instruments over and over. "It appears the planet is absorbing our weapons fire and storing the energy somehow." The truth was even more remarkable than the Draconians could imagine. Dr. Helen Brooks and Archmage Valdris Starseeker had created a defense that existed in multiple dimensions at once. The shield did not just block the alien weapons, it collected their energy and prepared to send it back. Down on Earth's surface, the real counterattack was already beginning. General Kate Sullivan and Keeper Alara Moonwhisper had planned this moment for months. The Draconians had revealed the positions of all their ships when they tried to bombard the planet. Now those same ships had become targets. All aerospace. "Units, this is command," Kate spoke into her radio. "Operation Skyfall is now active. Repeat, Operation Skyfall is active." Human fighter jets rose from hidden airfields while elven wind riders soared up from forest clearings. The aircraft looked normal from a distance, but up close the differences were obvious. Elven runes glowed along the wings and hulls. The engines hummed with magical energy as well as jet fuel. Captain Tracy White led the first wave of fighters toward the lowest Draconian ships. Her F-22 had been modified by elven artificers until it could do things that violated the laws of physics. When she activated the magical enhancements, her plane could fly faster than sound without making any noise. "Target acquired," she announced as a Draconian cruiser came into range. "Beginning attack run." The missiles she fired were not normal weapons. Each one contained a core of enchanted crystal that disrupted both technology and magic. When they struck the alien ship's hull, the explosions tore holes in reality itself. The cruiser broke apart as if it were made of paper. Elven wind singers rode the air currents around the battle singing songs that confused Draconian sensors. The alien ships could not target what they could not detect. Fighters appeared and disappeared like ghosts, while their weapons struck with deadly precision. Technical Sergeant Jamie Lee worked with a team of elven tech mages in a captured Draconian supply depot. They had learned to reverse engineer alien technology faster than the Draconians could build it. "Their shield generators use a specific frequency pattern," she explained as she modified a captured weapon. "If we invert that pattern, we can turn their own shields against them." The modified weapons sent energy pulses that made Draconian shields collapse inward. Ships that had been protected by energy barriers suddenly found themselves crushing themselves with their own defensive systems. The hunters were becoming the hunted as their own technology turned against them. Dr. Olivia Grant had discovered something even more devastating. The atmospheric compound that Muriel Dawnlight had created was not just poisonous to Draconians, it also interfered with their brain chemistry in ways that made them unable to think clearly. "They are becoming confused and paranoid," she reported to the command center. "Draconian units are starting to fire on each other because they cannot tell friend from foe." On the ground, the few remaining alien forces found themselves trapped in a nightmare landscape. Tharia Earthsong and her fellow druids had transformed entire regions into hunting grounds. Trees moved like giant soldiers. The earth itself opened to swallow alien vehicles. Rivers changed course to flood Draconian positions. Draconian warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds, found themselves helpless against an enemy that seemed to control the very planet they stood on. Every rock and tree had become a weapon pointed at them. The air they breathed made them sick. The ground beneath their feet was no longer solid. Commander Zixathara tried desperately to regroup her scattered forces, but every order she gave was intercepted by Captain Laura Stone and Seraphina Thoughtweaver. The human-elf intelligence team had broken every Draconian code and could read their communications faster than the aliens could send them. "They are planning to concentrate their remaining ships near the moon," Laura announced as she decoded another message. "Zixathara thinks she can use the moon's gravity to shield her fleet from our attacks." Seraphina smiled as she felt the alien commander's desperate thoughts across the void of space. "She does not know that we have been waiting for her to make exactly this move." The trap around the moon was already prepared. Human space platforms that had been hidden for months suddenly revealed themselves. Elven starships that moved without engines appeared from behind asteroids. The Draconian fleet found itself surrounded by enemies they had never detected. The battle in space was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human weapons, guided by elven prophecy, struck with impossible accuracy. Ships that should have been too far away to hit their targets somehow found their mark every time. Draconian vessels exploded in brilliant flashes as their own power cores were turned into bombs. Amy Chen watched the space battle from her command post and marveled at how perfectly the plan was working. "The Draconians still think they are fighting a primitive planet," she said to Lyrelei Starweaver, who stood beside her. "They have no idea that we have been preparing for this war for generations." Lyrelei nodded as she guided another wave of modified missiles toward their targets. "My people have known this day would come since before your civilization learned to write. We have spent 3,000 years preparing Earth's defenses." The few Draconian ships that survived the moon battle tried to escape to deep space, but they found their path blocked by something that made no sense. Space itself seemed to have become solid around the solar system. They're faster than light. Drives would not work. They were trapped like insects in amber. Celestine Starfall and her fellow astromancers had woven barriers through the fabric of space-time itself. No ship could leave, and no message could escape. From the perspective of the Draconian Empire, the invasion fleet had simply vanished without sending a single report. Dr. Sophie Williams worked frantically to catalog all the captured alien technology before the final phase of the battle began. The Draconians had brought weapons and equipment from across their empire. All of it would soon belong to Earth. "We are learning more about galactic technology in one day than we could have discovered in a century of peaceful research," she reported to General Sullivan. "When this is over, we will be decades ahead of where we were before the invasion." But the battle was not over yet. Commander Zixathara still commanded a few dozen ships and thousands of warriors. She had one last, desperate plan that might save her forces and complete her mission. If she could not conquer Earth, then she would destroy it utterly. The Draconian commander prepared to activate the most terrible weapon in her arsenal. A device that could crack a planet's core and turn the entire world into a ball of molten rock. It would kill every human and elf on Earth, but it would also erase the humiliation of her defeat. She did not know that Lisa Morgan and a strike team of human special forces and elven blade dancers were already aboard her flagship. The final battle of the war was about to begin in the corridors of the alien command ship itself. The boarding of the Draconian flagship happened in complete silence. Lisa Morgan led her strike team through an airlock that had been opened by elven magic from the inside. Sylvana Nightbreeze had infiltrated the massive ship hours earlier and prepared the way for the assault. The corridors of the alien vessel were dark and filled with the sound of dying machinery. Emergency lights flickered red as the ship's systems failed one by one. The atmospheric poison that affected Draconian breathing had been introduced into the air circulation by sabotage. Most of the crew was already weak and confused. "Target is 3 levels up," Lisa whispered into her radio as the team moved through passages designed for creatures much larger than humans. "Intelligence says Zixathara is trying to activate some kind of planet-killer weapon." Behind her moved a mix of human commandos and elven warriors that represented the best of both species. Each soldier carried weapons that combined technology with magic. Each step was planned and coordinated through a mixture of military training and supernatural awareness. Commander Zixthara stood in the center of her command bridge, surrounded by the few officers still capable of fighting. Her green scales had turned pale, and her red eyes were dim with the effects of the poison air. But her hatred burned bright enough to keep her conscious and focused on her final task. "Activate the core destabilizer," she commanded her weapons. "Officer, if we cannot have this planet, then no one will." The device she was trying to use could tear apart the bonds that held atoms together deep inside a planet's core. The resulting explosion would turn Earth into an expanding cloud of superheated gas. It was a weapon of such terrible power that the Draconian Empire only used it when facing total defeat. But the weapon would not respond to her commands. Every system on the ship had been compromised by a combination of human sabotage and elven magic. The core destabilizer's targeting sensors showed only empty space where Earth should be. The planet had been hidden by illusions too complex for alien technology to penetrate. "Commander, the weapon cannot lock onto the target," the officer reported with growing panic in his voice. "Our sensors detect no planet in this system." "That is impossible. We are in orbit around their world. I can see it through the viewing ports." Dr. Helen Brooks and Archmage Valdris Starseeker had created more than just a defensive shield around Earth. They had wrapped the entire planet in layers of reality that existed in different dimensions. From inside the solar system, Earth appeared normal. But to alien sensors, it had become invisible and unreachable. The strike team reached the bridge level and prepared for the final assault. Through their enhanced senses, they could feel the presence of the remaining Draconians ahead. The aliens were desperate and dangerous, but they were also weakened by poison and despair. "Breaching charge is ready," reported Sergeant Beth Adams as she placed explosive devices around the bridge entrance. The charges were not normal explosives, but a combination of human engineering and elven alchemy that could burn through any known material. "All teams in position," Lisa confirmed as she checked with the other assault groups. "Remember, we need Zixthara alive if possible. Command wants to question her before this is over." The assault began with a blinding flash as the charges detonated. The bridge doors simply vanished in a burst of light and energy. Through the smoking opening came the strike team, moving with deadly precision. Human soldiers provided covering, fire, while elven warriors flowed between their enemies like water through stones. The battle on the bridge lasted less than 5 minutes. The Draconian guards were skilled fighters, but they had never faced enemies who combined military tactics with supernatural abilities. Weapons that could cut through their scales, warriors who could move faster than their eyes could follow. Magic that turned their own equipment against them. Commander Zixthara found herself facing Lisa Morgan and Alara Moonwhisper in the center of her ruined command center. Around them, the last of her officers lay dead or unconscious. The core destabilizer had been permanently disabled by elven technomancy that rewrote its programming at the quantum level. "You cannot have won," Zixthara snarled as she raised her energy weapon toward the human commander. "We are the Draconian Empire. We have conquered 100 worlds. You are nothing but primitives." Lisa smiled as she watched the alien weapon fail to fire. The power cell had been drained by the same magical interference that affected all Draconian technology. "We are primitives who were waiting for you," she replied calmly. "We knew you were coming long before your fleet entered our solar system." Alara stepped forward with her staff glowing softly in the dim light of the bridge. "Your empire has made a mistake that will be remembered across the galaxy," the Elven Keeper said, in perfect Draconian language. "You came to a world that was prepared for war, but hoped for peace. Now you will discover what happens when both species unite against a common threat." The final Draconian resistance collapsed within hours. Ships that had terrorized dozens of worlds surrendered to fighters that should not have been able to match them. Ground forces that had never known defeat laid down their weapons before enemies they could not understand or counter. Dr. Sophie Williams led the teams that cataloged captured alien technology. The Draconians had brought examples of equipment from across their empire. Weapons, shields, faster-than-light drives, and computers more advanced than anything Earth had ever seen. This technology will advance human and elven civilization by centuries, she reported to the Joint Command Council. We can study their star maps and learn the locations of every world in their empire. Their medical equipment will help us understand dozens of alien species. But the greatest prize was not technology. It was knowledge. The Draconian databases contained detailed information about galactic civilization, trade routes, political alliances, military capabilities, and the locations of other species that might threaten Earth in the future. Captain Laura Stone worked with Serafina Thoughtweaver to extract every bit of useful intelligence from the captured computers. The Draconian Empire spans 300 star systems, Laura announced as the data streams across her screens. But they have enemies. Lots of enemies, species they have conquered and enslaved who would love to see them fall. 6 months after the invasion ended, a Draconian scout probe arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system. The probe was sent by the Empire to investigate why the invasion fleet had never reported back. Its sensors swept the system looking for any trace of the 300 warships. The probe found nothing. Earth appeared to be a peaceful world where humans and elves lived in harmony. The cities showed no signs of battle damage. The orbital space contained no wreckage from destroyed ships. It was as if the invasion fleet had never existed. Aurelian Moonscribe carefully edited the historical records to remove any evidence of the Draconian presence. The elven lorekeeper worked with human archivists to ensure that future generations would remember the cooperation between species, but not the terrible weapons that had been used. Some knowledge is too dangerous to preserve, he explained to Dr. Williams as they sealed away the most destructive alien technologies. The galaxy does not need to know that Earth has weapons capable of destroying entire fleets. The scout probe transmitted its findings back to the Draconian Empire and then self-destructed as programmed. From the Empire's perspective, Earth remained a primitive world of no importance. The loss of the invasion fleet was recorded as an unexplained mystery. Years passed and other alien species began to probe the edges of Earth's solar system. Some came as potential invaders. Others arrived seeking trade or alliance. All of them found a world where humans and elves worked together in peace and harmony. None of them learned what had happened to the Draconians. The barriers around the solar system remained in place, hiding the true strength of Earth's defenses. The planet appeared to be exactly what it seemed, a quiet world on the edge of galactic civilization. But deep in hidden bunkers and elven sanctuaries, the weapons and knowledge remained ready. Human soldiers trained with magical weapons, while elven mages studied captured alien technology. The alliance between species had been forged in battle and strengthened by victory. Dr. Megan Foster published papers on theoretical xenobiology that helped prepare Earth for future contact with alien species. Her work was based on detailed studies of draconian physiology, but she never mentioned where the data had come from. General Kate Sullivan retired to write a book about theoretical military strategy. The book became required reading at military academies around the world. It described tactics for fighting enemies with superior technology, using unconventional methods and allied support. Commander Zix Thara spent her remaining years in a comfortable prison where human doctors and elven healers kept her alive, despite the damage done by atmospheric poison. She was questioned extensively about the Draconian Empire, but she never learned what had happened to her fleet. The message was clear to any species that possessed the intelligence to understand it. Earth was protected by forces that preferred peace, but were prepared for war. The planet welcomed visitors who came in friendship, but had proven that it could defend itself against any threat. In the deepest archives of both human and elven civilization, the true records were preserved. Future generations would know that. When the first great test came, their species had stood together and prevailed. They had shown the galaxy that some worlds were too dangerous to conquer, and some alliances were stronger than any empire. The Draconians had come to Earth expecting an easy victory. None had lived to tell their empire what they found instead.